What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about some questions that us Americans have about British culture. So today, I want to take a look at this Reddit discussion where somebody asked non British Redditors, what is one thing about British culture that you would like to have explained to you? Well, I'm non British, and I have lots of questions about British culture. So I thought it would just be very interesting to take a look at this and see what kind of answers we can finally get about how British life and British culture really works. So, starting with, why don't the Southerners and the Northerners like each other? Yes. Yes, I mean, that's actually this is maybe a controversial question. I don't really know how this is perceived in Britain. Well, to be clear, we're talking about England here. I feel like I've heard a little bit about this before, like Northerners and Southerners don't really like each other. I don't really know, as an American, I don't know how serious this is. I don't know if it's a real thing. I really don't understand it at all. So yes, this is absolutely a question that many Americans have. Are there any answers to this question? Because the Southerners are quinoa loving, skinny chai latte drinking fairies. And the Northerners are thick pie eating monkeys. Well, at least they're fair. At least they're neutral here. They had something strange to say about both sides. Okay, not what I was expecting. Is there any real explanation to this? Like, is this a real thing? How serious is this? The South is wealthier and tends to be more economically right wing. The North is our semi dilapidated former industrial heartlands that tend to be poorer and lean left. Oh, well, suddenly we got very, very serious. Is this accurate? Like, I don't know. If you live in England, you're either a northerner or a southerner. Well, what happens if you live right in the middle? Anyway, don't worry about that. Feel free to leave a comment, trying to explain this in your own words if you're somebody who's actually experienced this for yourself. But all I have to go on right now is this discussion, and it says essentially it's Southerners that thinking of Northerners as rough, backwards, parochial, while Northerners think of Southerners as snobby, soft, and arrogant. Oh, this is very interesting. I don't know. I want to compare this to the United States a little bit and be like, we don't really call it the North and the South, but we do have the term Southern. Like, we don't really call them, Southerners. I don't know. This just really isn't so much of a thing in America. It's just kind of a thing where people in the southern states in America do have like a reputation of being like, I don't know, what England would say is the Southerners thinking of Northerners as rough, backwards, and parochial. What does that word mean? It means relating to a church parish. Oh, wow, yeah. So this is the Northerners in England. We're talking about England, right? I hope. We're not like talking about Scotland versus England, North versus South. We're talking about Northern England versus Southern England, I think. I think. Northern England has the same stereotype as Southern America. Who knew? Who knew? In real terms, Northern and Southern people get on just fine on a personal level. Okay, good. And the divide is pretty blurred because we have the Midlands in between, and the boundaries are pretty ambiguous. Ah, So there might be like stereotypes that just exist, and people are going to think what they're going to think. But in practical sense, people mostly get along. This isn't like it's not like there's a civil war being waged over this or anything, really. So it's kind of like the United States, but the opposite. Exactly. Exactly, yeah. Okay. Interesting. Let's keep going. Yeah, that's great. That cleared that up for me a little bit. That was a pretty big question I had about Britain, or at least England. What else? Some questions that us Americans have about British culture. The fact that there's a whole TV network called Dave. Is there? I've never heard of this. I've heard of the BBC. Dave? There's a TV network in Britain called Dave. Like a person's name? What's it for? What is it? What does it show? I think it was solely so Dave plus one could be renamed Dave Javu. No idea what we're talking about. No idea. Couldn't tell you. Is this a question Americans have about British culture? About this network called Dave? Not really. I think most Americans have never heard of Dave, the TV network. This is a very specific question, but not one that most Americans have, because I've never even heard of this. It's actually called Dave because everyone knows a Dave. Okay, is there any real answer to this? Not English, but I know this one. UK TV explained the name as it's because everyone knows a bloke called Dave. That's not a joke. That's not a joke. That's really the explanation. Okay, fair enough. So it was supposed to sound sort of friendly and familiar. The TV network Dave. What do you show on Dave besides Taskmaster? I don't know. Must be a good network. What are some other questions Americans have about Britain? I watch Question Time with the Prime Minister all the time. What is Question Time with the Prime Minister? That sounds like a children's story. I don't know why that's what came to my mind first. Every Wednesday from 12 to 12:30. Let me make this a little bit bigger here. There's Question Time. The Prime Minister answers questions from MPs in the Commons every Wednesday. Really? Why don't we have this? Why don't we have Question Time with the President? That sounds really practical. Wait a minute, what the heck? Anyway, this wasn't supposed to be like comparing British government to American government, but that sounds really good and like something you should do. Here's something I can't figure out. The MPs will variously stand up and sit right back down again when someone else is speaking. There seems to be some order and logic to this, but I can't figure it out. Really? Well, I've watched some videos on like the House of Commons. It's pretty chaotic. Isn't there like a arbiter or a speaker of the House who kind of moderates everything and calls on people? And is that how this works? Or I've never heard of this Question Time with the Prime Minister though. But now I'm curious. MPs will just stand up and sit down? I gotta find some video of this. Let's see if there's an answer to this. MPs that stand up are signaling to the Speaker that they wish to speak to the House. The Speaker will spot them and make a mental note that they wish to speak and may pick them in the future. Excellent. Sometimes these questions just get, bam, answered perfectly, right on cue. Okay. Yeah, that's a very succinct answer. Succinct answer. Very good. Okay. I didn't know. I'm learning some things about Britain today. Questions I didn't even know I had. Cheese rolling. I think this is one of the earliest videos I ever did on this channel. Was watching the British cheese rolling contest, where you basically almost kill yourself chasing a cheese down a hill. Why? The question is just cheese rolling. Why? Some would say just why not? Are you trying to convince me you don't want to chase an entire wheel of double Gloucester down a hill for the chance of winning the wheel of cheese? Exactly. How did this begin? Does anyone really know? You're telling me that doesn't look fun? No, it's fun to watch. It doesn't look fun to participate in. Like you could really get hurt. Seriously, not to be like a I don't know Debbie Downer here, but we want to fling ourselves off an almost cliff at breakneck speeds for some cheese. It makes sense when you remember we have the NHS to put us back together. Exactly. Exactly. You have that British healthcare system. In America, you'd never do this. Your insurance plan would never cover this. Never. Never. Um, I don't think there's really, no one really gave a real explanation to this. Everyone's just kind of joking, saying, well, why the heck wouldn't you jump down a hill for cheese? So I don't know. I think a lot of Americans, at some point or another, have seen clips of this cheese chasing thing, and we do have questions about it, but okay. Can you instantly call a bluff on someone using a fake accent? Yes! Yes, this is such a good question. And it's yes! Okay, and the reason I say this is because it feels like British people have a supernatural ability to tell when Americans are putting on a bad British accent or any British accent. I saw a clip the other day on the internet where someone was like, Americans in movies can do a good British accent, but we can always tell. We can always tell. It's always a little bit off. Whereas I've never heard someone do any kind of British accent. And to be fair, there's endless British accents. And they all kind of sound very similar to us Americans. We have a very difficult time telling the difference between all the British accents. They sound very similar to us. Whereas in Britain, so let me put it this way. When we try to do a British accent, we try to do like a generic British accent, but there is no generic British accent. I think there's kind of a generic American accent. I don't know. I know there's different American accents, but we can't tell when British people do American accents. We can't tell. But it feels like British people are onto us immediately. Usually we can tell. Yeah. Most actors go for a generic British accent. Exactly. That doesn't actually sound like it's from anywhere. And it's recognizable as false. Most people try Cockney, which is nigh impossible to get completely right, without sounding like a caricature. Yes, I totally agree. Accents in Britain are on a different level. They're a different kind of animal. Seriously. It's because we try to do like a British accent, and there is no British accent. Hello there. How's it going? How's it going there, governor? You know, that stereotypical kind of thing. I sounded Australian there. I didn't even sound British. Like, what was that? That's what most Americans default to. It just sounds crazy. I can even tell that. A British dude who I play CSGO, which is a video game. I play video games online. He routinely calls me a bell end and a spacker. Oh my god. Should I be offended? This guy has the opportunity to ask the British people of the world any question. And he asks, is a bell end and a spacker, is that a bad thing? Is it? It sounds bad. I don't know what a spacker is. But a bell end refers to the tip of a men's genitals due to it looking like a bell. A bell end. Oh my god. Okay, it's not a good thing to be called that. I didn't know that. Okay, moving right along. What about a spacker? The charity that looked after people with cerebral palsy was called the Spastic Society, but they changed it because spastic, spacker, and spaz became terms of abuse. Yeah, those are. A spaz is a negative term in America. A spaz, it's someone who kind of freaks out and doesn't have any control over themselves. So, really, this kind of started with like sort of a derogatory term towards cerebral palsy sufferers. That's not good. Is that really the origin? So is a spacker like a spaz? Because a spaz is an insult in America that I understand. Um, oh, this basically saying that in Britain you guys call each other horrible things all the time, and it's just kind of normal. I believe the American terms would be this and this. Ah, well, you can't even say this word anymore, the R word. That's not even okay anymore in America. That is not politically correct. Where does all the bad rep for the British cuisine come from? And is it true? Good question. Very good question. A lot of Americans, myself included, have heard there's a stereotype that British food is bad. And I've learned a bit about British food on this channel, and it doesn't seem bad at all. So, okay, to be fair, some of it is really weird. Okay, but not bad, just different. It's mostly due to the wartime rationing, which led to some interesting meals being created. Really? There was a lot of government involvement during and after the war, which extended to tips on cooking your rations, which was basically amounted to boiling it into a horrible mush. This stereotype is blown away as soon as you taste a Sunday roast. Exactly. I think there's a lot of amazing British cuisine that I've seen on the internet. Okay, let's take a look at a few more here. Why do your pubs close so early? Do British pubs close early? This is not something I've heard of. I've seen lots of Brits here in the Netherlands absolutely destroy themselves with alcohol after they found out there was still 4 hours left of drinking time while they were already drunk at 12. Their pubs close early in Britain? Really? Because the closest thing we have in America is bars. Bars stay open late in America. I don't know, till 2 a.m. or something. It's from old laws passed during the World Wars to improve productivity and reduce drunkenness. Really? It's really just like government mandated laws to reduce drunkenness. Really? Oh, huh. That clearly that clearly never worked. Okay. Anything else here? This is good stuff. These are really good questions, and most of these are genuinely things Americans do wonder about, and a couple of things I didn't even know that I was curious about. I don't think I've felt as much national pride as I have before scrolling through this discussion. Is this funny for British people out there? I feel like it must be kind of funny to hear these kind of questions about, something you live in every day. And we're just like, what does this mean? How does a genuinely sorry British person act? Because they're saying British people say sorry a lot, but aren't genuine about it. We say sorry 30 times instead of 3 times. If you're actually sorry and not just saying that to be polite. When you yell, "Oi!" is it to get someone's attention, or are you angry and frustrated? I've heard that term, oi. Not something that's ever said in America. Yeah, oi. Yeah, that sounds kind of aggressive. There's a precise intonation to oi, which you learn over time to understand if it's the attention one or the angry one. So it's like, if you want attention, you're like, oi, kind of, gentle. If you're mad, you're like, oi! You're like, mad. Like that kind of thing. The irony and the black corrosive humor. Is it real or is it a TV creation? Very real. Yeah, British comedy, British sarcasm, this black kind of dark humor. Very, very British thing. I don't really think Americans question this very much. I just view that as a part of British culture, to be honest. But anyway, I think that's a good place to stop. This was a really fun discussion actually, and I actually got a few questions that I personally had answered for me. And a couple things I'm still a little shaky on, but that's okay. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment if you could clarify any of these British culture questions. That'd be fantastic. If you're British and you have the answers to this, that'd be amazing. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Britain and learning about British culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.